Welcome to Demand Better Canada. Tonight, I am making an emergency set of videos to help voters decide how to make sure that their voice is counted and the Ford government is held accountable for years of corruption and incompetence. At the moment, the Cons may win enough seats to silence most Ontarians, and only by voting for the Progressive Party, most likely to win in each of our ridings, can we stop this distortion of democracy. A vote is a small piece of power, and by working together, we can ensure that our votes matter. Today, we're going to be taking a look at 338canada.com's excellent interactive map with which we can see the specific numbers for each of the ridings that we want to look at. So now we're going to look at the GTA, the area around Toronto that has a large number of seats, many of which are currently slated to go Conservative, even though the majority of people in most of these ridings do not want a Conservative in power. If you want a too long didn't read, basically what I'm going to be saying for almost every single one of the ridings in the GTA is that the Liberals have a better shot at beating the Conservatives. And in many of these ridings, they have a real shot. They're only 4 to 7 points behind, or sometimes they are in an absolute dead heat. So watch the rest of the video if you want to find out the specifics for each of the ridings, and you may even hear your riding within it. But the only riding where I can absolutely recommend voting for the NDP is in Brampton East, because they are currently in a dead heat with the Conservatives in Brampton East. Whitby is where you should consider voting for the NDP, because they are currently beating out the Liberals by a small amount, and they have the best shot at overcoming the PCs, who are currently only at 42% of the vote. And the other spot is Oshawa. Oshawa is another location where voting for the NDP is a good shot. So let's take a closer look. We'll start with Brampton. So, in Brampton South, the Liberals have the best shot at beating the Conservative. In Brampton West, the Liberals have a slightly better shot at beating the Conservative. So honestly, might as well stick with that. In Brampton North, the Liberals have a slightly better chance at beating the Conservatives, even though the NDP currently holds the riding. Brampton East, this is a spot where the NDP has the advantage. In fact, they are in a dead heat with the Conservatives. So, if you want to keep your Conservative out of power, the best thing to do in that riding is to vote for the NDP. Directly below that is Mississauga-Malton, and that's another riding where the Liberals have a better shot at beating the PCs than the NDP do. And so we need smart voters to switch. Mississauga-Streetsville is another riding where the Liberals have the better chance at beating the PCs. This is largely true in the GTA, as the Liberals are fairly popular in the GTA. They clearly weren't that popular in southwestern Ontario, not as popular in the Golden Horseshoe if you've checked out my other videos, but they are very popular in the GTA and in Toronto, which is honestly a very good thing for our strategic voting movement. Because if all of these things were tied, I would have a lot of trouble giving advice. In fact, even 27 and 25% in Brampton Centre, it's currently held by the NDP. So I would consider voting for the NDP there, even though the Liberals are slightly ahead. But frankly, that one's kind of up to you. And if I am just going by strategic voting calculations entirely, then definitely go for the Liberals in that riding, even though it's currently held by the NDP. Directly below Mississauga-Streetsville is Mississauga-Erin Mills, and this is another riding where the Liberals have the best chance at beating the Conservative. Directly to the northeast of that is Mississauga Centre. And once again, the Liberals have the best shot at beating the Conservatives. They're only 4 points behind, and the margin of error is 7%. So the odds, there's a pretty decent chance that they will be able to beat the Conservatives if the smart vote goes to them. Look at how large the NDP vote is there, 18%. If only a fraction of those people decided to do the smart thing and switch, boom, we've got another riding out of the Conservative hands. Taking a look at Mississauga Lakeshore. Now, this is a place where the Ontario Liberal Party and the PCs are in a dead heat. So, keeping out the PCs is your top priority, then you know what to do. Directly above that is Etobicoke Lakeshore, and this is another place where the Liberals are in a dead heat with the Conservatives. So, you know what to do there too. In Etobicoke Centre, this is another spot where the Liberals are in a dead heat with the Conservatives and very well may take the riding, if people do the smart vote. In Etobicoke North, it's Doug Ford's riding, so you know they pumped an insane amount of money in there. Honestly, you can probably vote your preference because it's not going to matter. Our system will silence your vote because he's likely to get 45% of the vote. So don't worry about it. Just vote your preference there. Vaughan Woodbridge. This is another riding where basically only the Liberals have a good shot at taking out the Conservative. Above that is King-Vaughan. Oh my, this is where Stephen Lecce is? Ugh. He is one of the worst, most privileged little politicians. He is a lifelong politician, private school educated, because his rich parents couldn't let him rub elbows with ordinary kids. But he was put in charge of our entire education system, despite never actually being in any part of our education system. Oh, except for the slave auctions he was doing at Western University. So I guess there's that. So he would be great to remove, and frankly, the Liberals have the best shot at doing that in King-Vaughan. We'll take a little bit of a look at Newmarket Aurora, which I think is as far north as we're going to go. The place above this is going to be called Central Ontario when I release a video on it. So in Newmarket Aurora, the Liberals have the best shot at beating the Conservatives. In Aurora, Oak Ridges, and Richmond Hill, once again, Liberals have the best shot at beating the Conservatives in that riding. In Richmond Hill directly, the Liberals are only 6 points behind, so there's a good shot that they'll be able to take that riding as well. In Thornhill, there's basically no chance that we'll be able to overcome the PCs because they actually do have over half of the votes, and no amount of consolidation and strategic voting can get our voices heard in that context. So you can pretty much vote your preference in Thornhill. In Markham Thornhill, the Liberals are a lot closer. They are just at the edge of the margin of error. They are 8 points behind, and the margin of error is 8 points. So there's a chance that they'll take the riding, but it isn't super likely unless a lot of people do the smart vote. Markham Unionville is another place where it doesn't really matter. Vote your preference. Markham Stouffville is a place where the Liberals have a real shot at beating the Conservative if we do the smart vote. And let's take a look. Pickering Uxbridge. This is a PC riding that could be taken by the Liberals. The Liberals are just at the edge of the margin of error on this one as well. But if enough people do the smart vote, then that 37% of people voting for the Conservatives won't be silencing the other 63% of the riding. They'll be silenced by the 63% of people who are voting for progressive parties in their riding. Ajax, you should probably vote for, it's the Liberals that are in a dead heat. Whitby is where you should consider voting for the NDP because they are currently beating out the Liberals by a small amount, and they have the best shot at overcoming the PCs, who are currently only at 42% of the vote. And the other spot is Oshawa. Oshawa is another location where voting for the NDP is a good shot. But in nearly every other location in the GTA, it's either a safe Conservative seat where you should just vote your preference, or it is a Liberal potential victory. So it's always a good idea to take a look yourself, especially because sometimes these polls can change. The general recommendation for voters in the GTA is to vote Liberal unless you are in Brampton East, Whitby, or Oshawa, in which case definitely vote for the NDP because they have a better shot there than the Liberals. This has been a brief overview of the GTA and the general strategic voting recommendations that can be made there.